Hey everyone, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to take a look at that's a brilliant start, Tom, yes. We're going to take a look at a new monitor from Gigabyte Aorus, and it's got a similar name to the last one with a little X on the end, so you have to kind of go careful with that. It's called the F127Q X. But what essentially they've done over the other model, other than a completely different panel, it's actually gone from 165 Hz to now 240 Hz. And that's all available on a monitor that is an IPS panel, so you get all the great colours. It's HDR certified, but the most important thing is it's 1 millisecond grey to grey. So it's a 1 millisecond 240 Hz IPS panel, which for any of those of you out there that actually like your colours and everything to be outstanding and look really good, then you're going to know IPS is normally where we end up trying to head off to, but the refresh rate and the response time has always kept us kind of behind in the past. I personally run some 144 Hz 25, 14, 40 screens, and they're, I think, 5 or 6 seconds. So it just goes to show you how much the technology is starting to progress now. But anyway, they are the boiled down details. We need to move on and have a look at the rest. So yes, this is the Gigabyte website, but I thought I'd just walk you through this nice and simply so that we can go through the settings really fast. So 240 Hz, 2560 by 1440, FreeSync Premium, but it is also G-Sync compatible. IPS panel with a 0.3 seconds MPRT or a 1 millisecond grey to grey. It does support high bitrate 3 as well, and that's it says 8 bits colour at the same time with the HDR, but later on you'll see it does support 10 bits colour as well. 100% Adobe RGB as well with that 10 bit. See, there it is, 10 bit with 100% Adobe RGB. Then the Game Assist stuff that I spoke to you about before. Aim stabilizer, the dashboard so that you can keep an eye on everything. The black equalizer does actually help turn all the blacks on and it really makes them oil slick. The Game Assist again, where you've got the little aimer that you can use. The Sidekick is the software, which I'll show you in a sec. And then the active noise cancelling. There's many versions of these on different softwares though, so you can have a look. Also, you've got RGB on it. I will say though, when it comes to this sort of thing with different brands, if you've got your monitor against the wall, you're never going to see it. So I think it would be nice if they could make these lighting pads very bright so that if you wanted to, you could turn them up and see the reflections against the wall as if you had a LED kit around the back of the monitor. Otherwise, I've always thought these have been a bit pointless. They say about the design, but essentially the swivel -20 to +20. Pivot, it will go around 90 degrees, so you can have it landscape or portrait or horizontal or vertical, however you want to say it. There's a lot of height adjustment as well. I'll show you on the actual monitor itself, but it's daft. And then a lot of tilt. I don't know how many of you are going to want it tilted that much though, unless you're going to stand up or you like sitting, you know, kind of up and further away from the screen. But the options are there and options are good. You can make your, you know, choices. Underneath the monitor itself, 2 HDMIs. Then you've got a display port. Now it doesn't say it's HDMI 2.1. So I'm going to assume it's just HDMI 2. Display port. Then you've got the connection to link to the system. You've got 2 USB 3s for a hub, and you've also got a separate microphone and headphone, and that's how it does the noise cancellation as well. But you can also see there that you get a year of non-bright dot policy. I don't know whether that's dead pixel or whether that's one that's, you know, slightly brighter than the others. That's what it sounds, but anyway, that's to do with that. So they are the basics of the screen itself. So on to the actual screen itself. Now we have a couple of ways that we can access the settings. There's the normal way by pressing the button underneath, and then you can go into the dashboard if you want, which brings you up this stuff that's actually going on the PC at the moment, but we'll ignore that for the minute because what I want to do is just go into the settings themselves. They can change all the settings on the system via the little button and navigate through like that, as you probably are used to. But what you can also do as well over here is do it in the actual software. Now there's a USB cable for the monitor itself, which connects it to your system, and it means you can make all of your setting changes for the monitor from the system itself with your keyboard and your mouse, or most importantly your mouse. So you can change all of these and go through. Now I'm looking at the screen on my camera and I'm not sure about the colours, but visually these colours are epic. The blacks are oil slick black. The reds really pop. All the shadows and everything look all nice. It looks lovely, but you can go through and make some rather monumental changes if you want in the set for some of the presets over here, and you can go through and it makes some of them bluer and some of them warmer. I've just kept it on standard and then made a few tweaks. Reader, for example, you can see gets rid of all of the blue so it's safer for your eyes. So there's loads of things like that you can do. Now you have settings when it's finished for the brightness, contrast, all of the normal thing. The black equalizer too actually works really well, and it is very blacks, but you can turn it up or down if you want. You can play around with the blue light and super resolution. Got the FreeSync thing here. Aim stabilizer does help. One of the things here is the crosshair, and you'll see it comes up in the middle, and we can change the crosshair if we want, although it hasn't. Just to, oh hang on, let me try and turn it off and then back on again. No, it's gone back to that one. Anyway, so the crosshair is there. I'm obviously doing something wrong, but you can see it in the middle. Now the thing with that crosshair is that's actually being put there within the software on the monitor itself, not the system. So it can be a, I don't like saying it, but it can help you in your games unfairly maybe, but there's no way of tracking it. So it's going to be up to your own conscience how you deal with that. We'll flick it back off again though, because there is something that I did want to talk to you guys about. We need to zoom the camera out so that I can do it, because it's going to come up here. So there is a thing where you can flick it on and it says refresh rate. Now you can see up here that it's 60. Now it's obviously a 240 Hertz monitor. What you actually end up having to do is, and I'll walk you through this on the screen as well, is go to settings, into system, then display, then find advanced display settings down here, and you'll see that you've got the monitor listed, and then what you need to do is display adapt properties. Bring it back over here so it's all in one place. On the monitor you'll see that the refresh rate is just automatically set to 59 Hertz. Some systems will update automatically, some might not. I've put all of the software on this though and it didn't make any difference. But we can go down and obviously click to that 240 Hertz. Click apply, it may flick a little bit, keep changes, okay. Right, so now if we go and turn the refresh rate on, you can now see it's at 240 Hertz. But just really quickly, because this does open really fast, what I did want to show you that this is pretty cool is, yes, it says 240 on the desktop because that's the way it's going to be. But you can now see it's changing in Unigine. So now you get an active frames per second on screen, because if you buy a 240 Hertz monitor, what a lot of people don't realize is it will only be displaying 240 Hertz if the frames per second of the game that you're playing is that high. Now we've obviously got FreeSync and this is G-Sync compatible as well, but if you do have your frames synced, then the monitor is going to be refreshing at the same rate as the graphics card can deliver them, which is why you're going to get that. If you have that off, sometimes you get steps in between, but if you turn VSync off, you shouldn't have any issues. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you're playing a heavily demanding game that's going to be playing around 80 or 90 frames per second, then 240 Hertz isn't really going to do you any favours. But if you have a game like a MOBA or one of the lower tasking games, which can really rage the frames per second, like professional CSGO and that sort of thing, then that is where these frames per second or higher refresh rates, I should say, will really come into play. So there's a little bit of a one for you guys. Now there's also gaming timers down here. You've got the dashboard location as well. Now I've not had the dashboard on, but you can flick it on over here, and then over on this side it will pick up some settings. Now after initially turning it on, some of them do eventually kind of start to ping on, like the GPU frequencies just updated, GPU fan speeds just updated. They eventually do ping up. The one thing I haven't been able to get to work properly is when you turn the dashboard on from within here. I've never been able to get it to do it in here because you can't actually press it. It's better to do it within the actual software itself. Now what it does do though with that is that part of the software is actually running again on the monitor. It's being fed by the sensors on the PC, but the software is running on the monitor itself. So it's completely overlaid all the time. So it won't interrupt any of the games. There's no kind of like going to be configs or anything like that. And you can move the positioning of them as well. So there can be some really good handy tools for you there to overlay on your games without there being a negative system impact or anything like that. Now, it's an absolutely cracking monitor, and I did say I'd talk about the 1440 thing rather than it being 4K. Well, you obviously need a lot of extra grunt to jump from 2560 1440 to 4K. And I don't think there'd be much of a point having a 4K monitor with a 240 Hz refresh rate either, because then you really are limiting yourself to just games that aren't very graphically kind of demanding, and that would go away from the point in wanting a screen that you can go straight from your gaming into a session of Photoshop or video editing and things be really close to the way that you're going to be wanting it. It's obviously not a professional level screen for when it comes to Photoshop or video editing, but those screens cost upwards of more than double of this, and this comes in around the £650–675 mark if you look on the market today. So IPS is definitely one of those for those of you out there that like things to look better, because you're never going to get the colour reproduction with a TN panel or a VN panel or anything like that, although they probably are going to be a smidge faster. But this kind of mixes the best of both worlds, where you've got epic colour with some speed and good response time as well. So speed being the hertz, response time being the grey to grey, like 1 millisecond or 0.3 if you go the MPRT. It ticks a lot of boxes for not a lot of money. This monitor, even if it was 144 hertz, a couple of years ago would have been north of £1,000. So the fact that we've got faster refresh rates now with quicker latency, it just goes to show you where things are going. They've done an incredibly good job on this, and one of the things that really stood out for me on this was how good that IPS panel was. I know everyone sends alarm bells off about backlight bleed, but the only time you ever really see backlight, even on a bad screen, is on a completely dark screen anyway, normally when your system's starting up, or possibly when you're watching a very dark film. I've not seen anything bad with this whatsoever, but I will say that the blacks are oil slick black, and a colour that I always look for is red, and it's reproduced so well on this. Even with the OC3D logo that you would have seen at the start, it looks crisp and pucker. I'll go a step further with it though, because I personally do use IPS panels, and I've got some ones that were expensive years ago, and I've had a lot of monitors through here over the years, and I have 4 in total because I'm always doing a million things at once. And this is one of the first screens recently that I've had in front of me, and I have debated wanting to upgrade what is on my desk. I enjoyed using it. I used it for hours. It didn't hurt my eyes. If you do need to do a lot of reading, you've got all the color temperature stuff that you can go through and make tick boxes with really easily. It is a very good screen for not a stupid amount of money. It's not cheap, no, but one of the things that you do need to consider with a monitor, same as your graphics card kind of scenario, is you spend a lot of time looking at that. So sometimes you do need to, if you're going to be sitting with it a long time and you can spare a little bit of extra money, sometimes it can be worth finding that little bit of extra budget, or maybe even if you have to, getting a cheap monitor to start off with and then looking at buying a better one later on when circumstances allow. And I would say this is definitely one of those that should definitely be on the shortlist. One of the things I will say as well that I did find out that I found quite interesting is Gigabyte Aorus have moved away from using Samsung panels, and this is actually a Sharp panel, which surprised me greatly because it's just not a name that you hear a lot anymore, or certainly not, widely mentioned. but the screen quality is cracking. Now, I don't want to say any more about it being cracking because I know I have said it a lot of times now, but this is, I would personally say that them just putting the X on the end of the name is going to blur lines a little bit, in that people might not realise the difference. And the difference between this screen and the one that I reviewed before, which was the non-X, is night and day. So I think Gigabyte have missed the trick by not giving it a new name, or, you know, rather than just that X on the end. It could be confusing for people, and I think also people might end up buying the wrong one, which would be a great shame. But anyway, epic screen, enthusiast OC3D award, because it's absolutely amazing. And now I'm going to go and look at my other screens and start to think maybe I need to be upgrading as well. But oh, and just so that you're aware, if I was to upgrade personally, it would be 2560 by 1440 panels. Anyway, oh, and this has all been getting driven in the background by a 3080, just in case you didn't realise, because I put a little system together with one of the new Vision 3080s, and it's underneath it is a 5600X. So we've not gone stupid with the processor. Lovely looking 3080 in there to drive the frames per second in a fairly low priced Be Quiet system, with a low price Be Quiet cooler as well. I just went with the white stuff, added in some extra LEDs to make it look pretty. So if you think about it, most of the money with this system has been, oh, it is a master, so it's an expensive board, but most of the money has been spent on the graphics card in reality, and then the monitor. So yeah, that's up to you. Let me know what you think, guys and girlies. But for now at least, this has been Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.